Let's find common ground. Welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Florian Glatz, and today I'm joined by Clément Lesaege, the founder of Kleros. Clément, I'm so happy you're here. Welcome to the podcast. Please introduce yourself to our listeners who don't know you yet.
So I'm Clément Lesaege. I'm French and I live in Portugal. I started crypto around 2013. First, just like as a hobbyist, selling some crypto on local Bitcoin, playing with multisig, like multisig at the time of Bitcoin. So paid to hash script. And after I finished my studies, when I started to work on Kleros. At the time, it was not called Kleros, but it was like two separate projects, one side with Federico and one side with me. And then we were put in touch by Suzanne of BitNation. And then we fused the project into what would then become Kleros. At Kleros, we do two main things. One, which is obviously developing the Kleros protocol. But then the other is developing the ecosystem. So for that, we are helping other people to integrate with Kleros. And we also made a few showcase applications, including Pro Humanity, which is a decentralized list of humans, where you have to put a deposit, find someone to watch for you, make a small video, and if you do everything correctly, you get registered. And the idea is that you can only register one time, so that's a system for seed resistance. So that's like the most known application that made outside of Kleros. But that's not the only one. We have create content, token registry. We have Linguo, an application for translation. So there are a bunch of small projects that were done by the Kleros cooperative to bootstrap the ecosystem.
Perfect introduction. Thank you so much. And a lot to dive into. But before we get there, I would like to get your assessment a little bit where we stand in Web3 at the moment. I've always admired how you're working on really long-term projects, Kleros and Proof of Humanity, and the applications that you have for Kleros, to me, have always been sort of really long-term applications that will need sort of a very vibrant ecosystem in general to really bring value. And so you started quite early. I remember around 2017 when Kleros, I think, emerged as a joint project. And back then, there were hardly any users or use cases for blockchain. It was more hype than reality. You could argue that it's still the case today. I do think we've progressed quite a lot, but it's still, I think, pretty early days. How do you see how Web3, as we call it today, or crypto, as the old OGs call it, could actually break through to the mass market, assuming that hasn't happened yet?
So I think Web3 is already better for, I would say, purely financial services than like classic finance. Like if you compare a wallet to a bank, like the wallet is way, way better. First, you don't need to go anywhere. Like for me, you have to tell me, you have to go into a physical place to open a bank account, show your ID, a bunch of documents. The bank can tell so that's also important. So like the wallet, completely online, permissionless. You don't need to ask permission for everyone. You don't get rejected based on your business or on your income or on your risk profile. You just do it. So some people may still think, like classic banking is easier and crypto is hard. But that's basically just because they were born within the classic banking system. And obviously, like now people are born now, they will be born in I hope like a more and more crypto-nized, I don't know what to call that, ecosystem. So I think for like pure finance, crypto is already there, ready to be used. But maybe what is maybe lacking will be finance as part of, I would say, classic application. Like, for example, you want to have like a Web3 version of Uber, of Amazon. All of those, they are not there yet. I think it's really happened because of scalability issues. So, like in the last bull market, we got like a very strong bull market. But then what happened is, Ethereum, which is where most of the things were happening, gets bloated, like the transaction fee are very high, and so all of the low value transaction doesn't make sense anymore. So you can only have purely financial transactions, which are high value. So it can like stop this bull market at this point because of technical constraint. And I think that's the only time it happened in the history of crypto. Like most of the time, like you could just do all the transaction you wanted for a few cents, and scalability was not a practical issue. But now we are blocked in the Latin market by scalability. Now, fortunately, we are getting to solve this scalability with rollups. Currently, we don't have real rollups. Like we have some experimental system with multisig. So in practice, it's not really a rollup. It's more like I don't know. It's a rollup with some trading, a lot of trading wheel. Let's call it this way. But once we have real rollups, I would expect that it opens to, well, I don't even know if real rollups may be sufficient. Maybe you also need sharding because you're on rollups, the fees are not negligible. But once we manage to solve the scalability, and like there is good indication that we're gonna manage to solve those, if you combine rollup and sharding, we're not gonna have a transaction fee issues anymore, and now it will open to a lot of non-purely financial transactions. So I think that's how we get the crypto ecosystem to really go to the masses. Because for now, the crypto ecosystem in some way is quite self-referential, in the sense that, like you make a blockchain Ethereum, and okay, what further do you have on it? Well, you have ETH to trade ETH. And after it becomes a bit less referential, where now you have exchanges, you have stuff like Uniswap, CoSwap or whatever. You have exchanges which are there. But then those exchanges, they make some token, and those tokens they also get trading on exchanges. And then you get some lending platform, collateral lending platforms, stuff like Aave, Compound. And they also have their token, and you also can use the token of this platform and other exchanges on Aave or Compound to do some leverage, which is also trading. And all of this, like you create a financial system, which is remarkable. And you create a financial system which is working well, which doesn't need much doesn't need government intervention. There is some government intervention that I generally think is bad. So you make a system which is a good contender to the classic financial system. But for now, it's still mainly self-referential. And why does it make sense that there's some valuation? Because I would think that rational actor would expect that in the future, you would have all those applications which are not purely financial, which would also go there. Like it's like for now, we just had like a banking system where we were only trading shares of banks or bank-related products. But then we are betting that we'll be trading things which are not just like financial, like we can be trading futures on like real asset, like like oil, gas, crops. So you can do some crop insurance. Like for now, we have insurance, like we have Slash, but it's insuring most of the time like smart contract risk or stable coins, which are also within this financial system. So again, it's in some way it's self-referentials. But the day where we can talk about an application and you don't put yourself into like this just like financial sector. Like if you are doing like crop insurance, okay, you are financial, but you're also agricultural sector. Or if you are doing decentralized Uber, you have a very small finance part. You have a finance department for sure, but you are mainly in transport sector. And most people will not argue that Uber is a financial project. So when we have a non-financial things, that's actually what would be justifying the valuation of the financial ecosystem that has been built today.
That's a really interesting take, and a bunch of things I want to pick up on. First of all, I like your reasoning for why the bull market, the last one, was sort of blocked. And you say it's because we had scalability issues. The blockchain could not be used for low value transactions anymore. I think most people in the space or outside of the space actually would argue that the last bull market was interrupted by players like FTX, 3 Arrow Capital, maybe even Luna.
Oh no, sorry. So I'm not talking about. Okay, for me, I'm still in the you're still in like in the middle. I'm talking about when ETH went to 1,300 and then went back to 80. That's what I call the last bull market.
All right.
I think you are probably still in the current market, but you know, it needs some factor of perspective. You know,
Yeah.
like for me, I started with CTH at 30 cents. So when I see it drop from 4,000 to 1.5 thousand, it's still bull market for me. When it dropped from 1.3 thousand to $80, okay, this is the end of the bull market.
That's a healthy perspective.
So we have to take things in the crypto context. So for me, dividing by 2 or 3 is not really like the end of the market. When we went from 80 to 4,000.
This is a really encouraging perspective. Yeah. I remember that time when Ether dropped from 1,300 to 80. I was also like, where is this journey going? And yeah, we went back quickly up. So there was indeed, and I agree, it's actually still quite bullish. In terms of the non-financial applications that you mentioned, you're talking about Uber, Amazon as an example. Me, myself, I would say I follow your hypothesis here, and obviously with Common Ground, I myself am placing a bet in the market, which is a Web3 social network. What, from your perspective, is the most likely non-financial application that might drive, the market out of this self-referential situation? Is it social, or is it transportation? Is it insurance? What are sort of indicators that you see out there that give you some confidence or that seem interesting?
Yes, the social network can be a thing because it's like very, very online, and a lot of people are actually complaining about the current handling of social network. Whether they believe the moderation is not strict enough or is too strict, depending on who you ask. So here you could have some gains by being decentralized, where you could have individuals which will decide on their own level of moderation. So that's interesting, and I think it can be one of the first few applications. You also get gaming, even if gaming is not that strong of a market compared to like transport or social networks. It's also something which is purely online, so it's also easier to get. After, when you get into the physical world, it may be a bit more difficult, but it's also where a lot of the value resides. Like getting some stuff like Amazon, like to buy anything with crypto, like a very efficient marketplace with almost no fees. I think that's something which could really take off if you don't have any transaction issues. Yeah.
And the last point you made that I found really beautiful, and I haven't had someone who put it like this, but it just makes so much sense to me, is to say that, well, if you've been born in a classical banking system, of course you will believe that banks are easier, versus if you're born today and the first sort of account that you have is actually a wallet, you will forever find the wallet a more accessible form of storing value. Do you think wallet technology as it is today is ready for this sort of mass adoption by digital natives, people born today, or do we need some sort of breakthrough innovation for wallets to actually function?
I don't know if it's to be a breakthrough innovation, but you need to allow user to have kind of like training wheels. Because currently, if you make like the only thing which could go against this statement that wallets are easier than the classic banking system is that it's way easier to lose your money with a wallet than it is in the banking system. So it's like great power, great responsibilities. So there will be some, I think, improvements in the wallet side. First one will be social recovery, where if you lose your key, you should have a way to get it back by proving who you are. So it can be done by maybe kind of like a list of friends who can like vouch that, okay, you are this who you say you are, and obviously the wallet, like you maybe have a countdown of a month or something like that. So if you still have your key and someone try to reassign your wallet to someone else, well, you can reconcile it yourself. But then if you lose your key, maybe your like the friend that you design can design a new address and now you get your wallet back. So that's one thing, wallet recovery. The other one would be to have security when using application, because most of the users, like we ask them to sign something, they don't really know what they are signing. Well, if they are signing a transfer of a native token, a BTH, okay, they can most of the time see it. But if you are doing like something more complex, most users will not be able to know what it's doing. So I think it's not about having a UX, which is like a security-oriented UX, where if you do something which seems weird, the wallet should tell you, okay, like, do you really want to do that? Do you really want to send your token to the address of the token contract? It doesn't seem right. Do you really want to send your token to 0? It seems you just start sending it to a new address and it's gonna be bad. Like, do you really want to do that? Confirm and like show a small clip showing what was actually gonna happen. For that, like some of the things are trivial on the wallet to prevent people from mistakenly sending it to 0 or sending it to the contract itself. It's something which is pretty trivial to implement. Some of them may be harder because it's an adversarial thing where you may have people who want you to sign some messages, which it can be like a approve infinity of USDC to this address, and now they can bring all your USDC. For that, you should have like a curated list of contracts which are to be considered as safe and secured. At Kleros, you already work on something a bit similar. It's not about just being safe and secure, but about tagging contract addresses. So you can see, sometimes if you look in Etherscan, you will see some tag, and sometimes they will tell you, oh, these tags come from Kleros. So obviously we have a way bigger list than what is shown in Etherscan, but Etherscan shows whoever submitted first. So if it was submitted by someone before, like the Kleros system, not going to show as Kleros, but most of the time you will also see that the Kleros tag list. So this way you can know that, okay, like you're approving to this Aave contract and not, you are not on a scam website. So scam websites are very, very common. I know someone who got scammed. I prevented someone from getting scammed in front of me, where someone was about to use like a fake Nosy safe, and it was from Google.
Oh wow!
Like that was in front of me. So we are talking about safe, and he typed Nosy safe from Google, and click on the first link which pops up. Except the first link, it's some paid advertisement by a scammer. And I knew what I'm doing. Look, this is wrong. We reported that to Google, and well, it was like in a few minutes, Google had removed the advertisement. Or maybe I got lucky and someone had reported before me, but in a few minutes it was removed from Google. But you may still have a bunch of people who may have clicked and got their phone drained. So interesting. That's something which is like have to go around. You really need to have also so your wallet. They should have a list of all the website, and then make some machine learning to warn you, okay, this looks like this other website, but it's not. If you really want to proceed. In the same way you have, like anti-malware, we should have like wallet working more as anti-malware. And one of the issue for that to happen is that we've been talking with some wallets. I mean, like a browser wallet, not like Nosy Safe. It's a very different thing because you can make modules and they are very open to anyone making modules. But the wallet like MetaMask, they will be way more conservative. And they will be way more conservative because they will be scared that if something bad happens, they will be blamed. So like if MetaMask doesn't tell you that this contract is Aave or not, well, they will think, well, no, it's the responsibility of the user to verify what this contract is. But then they are scared that if they have a system which labels the contract people are interacting with, and at some point they label something wrong, they will be the one to blame. And this is like a very bad situation because by labeling things, they will reduce the amount of scams, but they would increase the amount of people blaming them for being scammed. You see, like that's a rare instances.
I get the point. That's interesting. Yeah. I love that there is an application of the Kleros protocol hidden in there, which is about curating a list of safe addresses and safe providers and so on. So it just goes to show that you've chosen a really hard long-term problem to solve with Kleros. So I think good for you. Um, One problem you didn't mention, and I want to understand how you much see it as a problem, is what some people call the onboarding problem, which is that how do people actually get their first cryptos into a wallet, right? I can download the wallet app, I can install the MetaMask plugin. Great, I have a wallet now, but I don't have any crypto. And most people today will have to register at a centralized exchange, get KYC there, which might be a hurdle for some people. And then they have to deposit funds from a bank account, which is another hurdle. And then they can finally buy some crypto, then need to take it off the exchange. So it's such a cumbersome process. So I don't feel like this is going to scale to these billion plus users that we want to see in the space. How do you think this is going to be solved? Is it these non-financial apps that are going to give these cryptos to people? Is it going to be some other distribution mechanism? How do we solve this element of the onboarding?
Well, like I think you just like if people are using crypto and they like it, they are also multiplying. Like for me, like I don't know how many people I've introduced to crypto. Like some people are liking to pay them. I send them I show them how to use the wallet, and I need them some crypto for payment. With Kleros and Proof of Humanity, we had some onboarding events where we also gave a small amount of crypto to people to start and use the application that we are developing. So I think if most people are quite keen to onboard people they know, it can multiply quite fast. Even if everyone is onboarding one person every year, it's not even much. You can like the exponential multiplication. And to get to the point where everyone is onboarding one person every year, like you need to have a lot of interest and a lot of value for people using crypto for them to do that.
I like that. And I have to say, I also onboarded taxi drivers, I onboarded barkeepers, I onboarded the most random people over the years into crypto by sending them some. So, I mean, it's a fun experience for both sides actually to do this. So maybe that's a good way to think about it.
Sometimes you have people who just want to get some crypto and, like you just exchange them, like they give you like €100 and you just send the currency in crypto just so they can get started,
So let's talk a little bit about Kleros. In my mind, Kleros firmly occupies this spot of on-chain dispute resolution. That's how I initially, understood the protocol you're building. But then looking at the use cases you're churning out, it feels like this is the wrong way to even frame it. What is the most generalized definition of the Kleros protocol in your mind? And is dispute resolution even something that you still have in scope, or?
Well, that's how we dispute. But if you want to frame it in a more generalized way, but that's going to be less easy to understand for newcomers, we could see it as an optimistic subjective oracle. So that's why we have to get into the three words. So oracle, where you have to answer some question. Optimistic in the sense that most of the time you don't go to Kleros. Most of the time someone answers the question and no one complains. So for example, you have an insurance claim, someone makes an insurance claim, no one challenges the claim. So optimistically the insurance claim can be executed and the insurer can be paid out. Or for a prediction market, you ask who won the US election and someone is going to report that it's Biden and no one is going to challenge it. But in this case, someone challenge it. If no one challenge it, then it's going to be accepted. If someone challenge it, then, you have Kleros who needs to come here. So that's the optimistic and subjective. So it's subjective, but not very subjective. It's just like slightly subjective. So because you have, for purely objective things, smart contracts are good enough. Like if you want to exchange a token for another one, it's a purely subjective interaction. Also, it's a purely objective interaction. So the smart contract can just, like swap those tokens, and there is no need of a potential human involvement. But now, if you ask a question which is even slightly subjective, which is like, was this contract hacked? Who won this election? Was there an earthquake on this place? Then you may need some human involvement at some point.
I think that is a good explanation and shows the range of use cases actually that it has. You obviously have been in the market now for, I guess, 6 years at this point, which is quite a while. A lot of peers that you started with have built businesses that have to some extent found adoption. I'm in particular talking, of course, about DeFi applications such as Uniswap, which has become maybe one of the most popular applications in crypto, the lending protocols, the stablecoins maker. Kleros seems to still sort of wait for its big day. How do you look at adoption of Kleros? Are you happy with the state of adoption, and where sort of do you see the most use of Kleros at the present day?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a way like you compare to, like there is maybe some bias in the sense that you compare to a project that everyone knows. Actually, if you look at most of the projects which were there when you started, most of them they are just dead. There is not much.
That is true.
Which are still there. So like the way for Kleros adoption is that it's like a twofold adoption, because it's not an app, but it's a brick for apps. So it may have a slower start, but the idea is that we are working on not the derivative, but the second derivative. I will put that in more English terms, where we want to have a growth in terms of application using Kleros, and we also want those applications to have a growth themselves. So that's why we want to work on this kind of second order growth. So normally, like most applications, let's say they are increasing the speed, our goal is to increase the acceleration, even if it means that we are probably starting slower. If you look at the use cases, well, in terms of user, you're going to have proof of humanity, where I think it's something like 15 to 20,000 people who have registered. If you look at the biggest cases, which aren't very active now, but the biggest cases we got were with the prediction market during the Trump election, where it was $2.5 million at stake, something like that. If we look, the biggest dispute. If you look at the highest amount of value secured, you will look with insurance, with Unslashed. And I think now they have something like 16,000 ETH of insurance pool. They had more before, but like UST happened. So they had around maybe a quarter of their insurance fund, which was used to pay out people with UST claims.
Interesting.
And that's also where we had the highest amount of Kleros secure value transfer, which happened. So it's slower than the prediction market dispute, because most of those are not disputed, because it uses people claim and no one complains. But that's going to be also where we had the highest amount of value transfer in system link with Kleros. But even Kleros would be really viable even with one big application. Like some project, they were making their own dispute resolution system. Like if you look at Augur, for example, Augur was on one hand a prediction market, and on the other hand, this dispute resolution system for this prediction market. So even one very successful application will make Kleros worthwhile. And actually, it's already worthwhile. If you look at the value that it's securing, it's way higher than the market cap. So I would say that it's already very worthwhile.
Mm-hmm. Before we talk about proof of humanity, because I think this is probably the most fascinating application so far, maybe a quick detour on the Kleros token. Do you think, looking back, back in 2017, the tokens were a big thing, and everybody launched a token. Now in 2023, where probably a lot of new projects are also starting out and wondering, should we have a token? Does it still make sense to have a token? Do you think it was a good choice to launch Kleros based on a token? Is it even, is it relevant for Kleros to succeed? Would you do anything differently in this regard?
So Kleros cannot work without a token. It's a shilling coin system. you need to have a specific token to stake and to be drawn as dual. If you were to use another token, like let's say ETH, for example, you will end up into incentive issues. So some of the incentive issue would be that, for example, if you manage to 15% attack a Kleros with ETH, well, you still got your ETH back, but now if you 15% attack a Kleros with PNK, well, you destroy the system, you destroy the value of the system, and you end up with worthless PNK. So you have a cost of attack, which is way higher. You also have a recovery mechanism that if someone were to be able to make an attack, you could fork the system, which would not be possible with ETH because people will not force ETH just because of the application on it. Well, unless you're DAO, but that's another question. And also in terms of the budget of an attack, because if you want to buy 51% of the PNK, which are mainly using Kleros, you will move the market far more than if you wanted to buy 51% of the ETH used by Kleros. It would not be 50% of all the ETH, it will only be 50% of all the ETH used by Kleros. So because of that, Kleros is a system which is fulfilling the cryptocurrency manifesto. You need to have a token which is a necessary element of your system. It's a necessary element. Replacing it with any other token will harm the good functioning of the system.
That is a good reason.
So it tends to be like my position for quite some years, that most of the tokens are useless. Maybe now I'm a bit more balanced because, at first you are like very idealistic, like only make tokens when make the system better. But sometime you may have a trade-off between making a token which is making the system worse, but which is making the success of the system more likely. Or how does that make any sense? I will explain. An example would be Sushi. Sushi is a good example of that. So if you look at the system of Sushi, well, if you have this token, you will take some part of the what they call trading fee, which are spread. You will take some part of the spread and give it to the Sushi holder instead of the people providing liquidity. So it makes it such that providing liquidity is less efficient, and it's also making such that trading is less efficient because you have some fee which goes to Sushi holder. So it will look like it's making the system work, right? And everything being equal, it makes the system work. But in some way, it makes it easier for the system to succeed because by giving a lot of yield farming incentive, you manage to manage to get noticed, you manage to get some user at start. So it's a bit like giving yourself a very good advantage at start, and then you will get a disadvantage in the longer term. But sometimes without this advantage at start, you will not even have managed to start in the first place.
Yeah.
Like a lot of projects, they require for him, like all the ICO, like a lot of projects, they require some funding. If there was no funding, there wouldn't be any project. And so now the main ICOs have a token, and if you implement a fee somewhere or put their token in some places where it was not needed, making the system slightly worse, but without this token, you will not have any system in the first place. So now I more or less see that as, like non-profit are good, but sometimes like a corporation is also good because something will not manage to get funding if it was just done purely from altruistic funding.
I think that is a really nice perspective, actually. And I think the Sushi Swap example is a nice one because they did, in fact, succeed in launching a product that was clearly competing with Uniswap. And thanks to this token, they were able to actually bootstrap it. And I also feel that this is a recipe that will be leveraged in the future by projects to actually attack Web2 competitors. So in the case of Common Ground, for example, we want to launch a token that it just incentivizes people to switch over from something like Discord, Facebook, or any other classical Web2 app. And although a social network doesn't strictly need a token, it sort of can help to break network effects, right? And so I think this is a good justification for a token. I want to dive a little bit into proof of humanity now, because to me it's so fascinating. Especially now that we see the takeoff of artificial intelligence, I see a lot of discussion at the moment on Twitter about sort of this wave of fake news, fake content. And I think Balaji, this famous crypto influencer and investor, set up a tweet today or yesterday saying that the only thing that AI won't be able to make in the future is physical people / community and cryptography, essentially. And so I think that we are at a point where we need an ability to prove whether you're a real human or not. And it seems that proof of humanity is taking quite a unique approach here. I want to talk to you a little bit about how you solve it, and maybe you can contrast it to something like WorldCoin, which is, funny enough, I think an approach to solve the same problem by Sam Altman, the guy who actually founded OpenAI. So it seems that he predicted the problem that his OpenAI creation will bring, and he incorporated a company or started a company, WorldCoin, that solves it. But they do solve it with a centralized sort of biometrics-based approach to capturing unique identities. So give me the pitch for proof of humanity, how it works, and why it's possibly better than what the Silicon Valley people are trying to bring to the world.
Well, if you are just comparing to WorldCoin, it's not very, very hard to get better. Like, not because you have other proof of a personhood project which I will, but I think WorldCoin cannot work, and it comes from a physical misunderstanding of way of computing. So WorldCoin, they give an orb, and they say, oh, this orb is gonna scan some irises and then gonna create some ID, and this orb in some way is trusted. But then you have physical possession of the orb. So you cannot trust a machine after giving it away to someone else. So yeah, you can make stuff making it harder to break it. Like in the other example would be stuff like SGX, like secure enclaves. But they always get broken, like SGX always get broken. So the question is not whether someone can break a WorldCoin or not, it's how expensive it is to break it. But it's sure it can be broken. Because at the end of the day, there's just some electric signals which are at only one place at a time. And you can just, you could flip them at the worst. You probably have easier attack thing, but at the worst, you will just flip them to register wherever you are. Blockchain cannot suffer from that, because in blockchain, the computation is done and repeated by all the nodes of the network. So you can do whatever you want on your machine, but if your results are wrong, well, you will auto-sync with the network. So that's why WorldCoin cannot work. So proof of humanity, there is with some elements which are, for example, that we call biometrics. In WorldCoin, it's very specific biometric that maybe could be as more precise, but also more invasive. While with proof of humanity, we don't ask you anything more than someone looking at this podcast, look at our face. We are not revealing anything more by registering with proof of humanity than what we are revealing in this podcast. So less invasive biometric, but publicity of the biometric with proof of humanity. Also with proof of humanity, we have this social vouching, where you need to have someone to vouch for you to register. And if they vouch for someone who is gonna make a multiple registration, and this is detected, the person vouching is gonna be removed also. The person vouching for you has to trust you that you're not trying to attack it. And not even if you're an attacker, currently we only require one vouch. So if you're an attacker, you need to be able to succeed your attack more than 50%. Because if you succeed less than 50%, on average, you will lose identities when you are detected. So we accept that there is no system will be perfect, but we can probably have a system such that the attack rate will be lower than the attack success rate will be lower than 50%. So currently, I don't think we've ever seen anyone managing to make multiple identities on proof of humanity. It doesn't mean that everything is solved, because even if no one managed to make fake identities, what happened was people selling or being tricked in giving you the identity. So basically, like people went in low-income countries and say, oh, well, I'm gonna give you, like $5 or $10 if you make this video, and then let me keep the key. And the person may not even know what the key is, so we say like, oh, and I get $10 for free, but that's good. And now you get some guy getting a lot of identity. Sometimes they get caught because they aren't very careful, but you may have some which will not be caught. So even if you solve the Sibyl attack problem, we don't solve. So we solve the problem that there is one human behind every identity, but we don't solve the problem of whether this is this human who is actually controlling the identity and it hasn't sold its identity to someone else. So that would be like the limitation that we have for now. And like further work on the top, stuff like SVT, reward tokens, may make it such that it's way harder to just make a bunch of fake identities. Like, for example, even PWAPs are not technically SVT because you can move them, but they can more or less act as SVTs. Like if your algorithm to detect if someone is validated or not, look at whether those PWAPs are moving. So now, like you are going to some event and you get some PWAPs, so you will need people to be actively involved in their identity to give a more credible identity that they are actually the one behind those. So I think, yeah, if we combine probability with SVTs, we're gonna get way better Sibyl resistant systems.
There are so first of all, I love your answer to why WorldCoin can't work. Is this I've got to remember that one and use it in the future. This is very good. It makes sense, actually. I've seen on YouTube videos how people hack Trezor wallets and those kinds. So even in those kinds of sort of secure digital devices for protecting your crypto coins, people have found ways to interrupt the electrical signals and actually extract the private keys and so on. So I think your case has been already proven in a sense. What in your mind is the biggest use case for proof of humanity? Is it, as some people believe, maybe universal basic income? Maybe that's even what the WorldCoin people are imagining for their system. Is it fighting fake news? Is it a better kind of social media? Is it governance and something like DAOs? What excites you personally, and what do you think is going to be the driver of demand for the system in the near or midterm?
Yeah, I would say generalized voting. So you can see like classic voting where you could have a system with one person, one vote, which may actually not necessarily be the best because, like when you are voting by coins, you have the issue of plutocracy, where you are voting with one person, one vote. You have the issue of giving the same amount of vote to a guy who just registered once and delegated, compared to a core developer of the system, which may not be what we want either. So maybe we want something a bit middle. So on social network, when you are liking something, when you are giving reviews, like the star system that you would see on Uber or Google Map, etc. All of that are some sort of voting in the sense of generalized voting. So all of those, they can be manipulated by bots and being able to verify that people are human behind it to make the voting system work better. I think it's very important. And even systems which are mixing money and human, like for example, quadratic voting or quadratic funding, they are mixing money and human because you are spending some tokens. But the idea with quadratic funding is that one person giving $10 is going to have less impact than 2% giving $5 each. So if you can make more identities, well, that means that you can buy the system. Well, if you can make as many identities as you want, you have all those identities giving 1 cent each, and you get all the matching for yourself, basically. So you need Sibyl resistant system for all of those things. And we cannot really rely on government because, government, they can make you some passport. Are they even good at it and making some chip and at only making the amount of chips that they are supposed to make? Like, it's sufficient of having one rogue government to make fake passports. when we want to, like, that's more a philosophical question, which is, I think lots of people were attracted by crypto, at least in the early days, still now, but now you also get way more, I would say, the mainstream thinking into people in crypto. But early days, it's like, like the cypherpunk, like Parallelipolis. Parallelipolis is the idea that you have a system that you want to change, and instead of doing a revolution and attacking frontally the system, what you do is just you make your own competing system, but you don't engage with the existing system. You make your own competing system and parallel system, and if it's better, people are gonna come there instead of going to the current system. Like that's the idea for banking. Like people in crypto, they are not trying to hack banks and bring the banking system down. Okay, some people maybe like Banage, but seems like saying that the USD is gonna break. Okay, some people may still use a bit of this tactic, but it's not where the main energy is focused. Like the main energy is focused into making something which is better, not bring down the existing. So on this philosophy, obviously, you cannot really rely on states because crypto is gonna replace a lot of the function of the state, and the main one, what's obvious one, is obviously money.
You mentioned soul-bound tokens as sort of one part of the recipe of making the scale. Now, I know a lot of critics in the identity space, people that have been working on what's called self-sovereign identity, or SSI, for many years, over a decade, some of them. And they're heavy critics of the soul-bound token concept because of its privacy implications. Where do you stand on this debate? Do you think it's to be expected that in the future, our identity and sort of personal data will live on blockchains and that's just how it's going to be? Or do you see a technical way to sort of combine the best of both worlds and actually have privacy while we have this concept of on-chain identity? How do you look at this?
So yeah, you have a dilemma between making something which is private by default and having privacy going on top. So example would be you have Zcash, which is private by default. You have Ethereum, which is like public by default, but then you can put privacy on top with stuff like Tornado Cash, for example. So the advantage of doing something which is public by default and can have some privacy layer is that it's way easier to develop. So you get some speed, you get the thing going first, you can get the traction. And I think, like that's why, like Ethereum is like leading the blockchain space, just in terms of usage. Not and this cash, I don't even know if a lot of people are building stuff on this cash anymore. People will say, okay, but then you get the issue that if not everything is private, people who are gonna use privacy are gonna be targeted. And that's true, like what happened with Tornado Cash, with some system which are actually monitoring launcher activity and are specifically tagging front coming from Tornado Cash as being like dirty or risky, even if most of users are just privacy conscious and not criminals. But yeah, I think I would still be more in the side of make something fast and public, and then let people make privacy layer on top. So for like sovereign identity, we already know, like we know we can make it private. Like it's not like a technological thing that is not going to be possible. It's just that it makes everything more complicated and make all the development slower. But we can make ZK proof. Even for humanity, because the guy of Sysmo, who made a way to prove that you are registered without actually having to reveal which is your registration. So yeah, I think we're gonna get some private proof of humanity. So private in the sense that your address that you use in your daily life doesn't need to be associated with you. But the limitation is that you still need to be associated with proof of humanity. People would be able to know that you are registered, but then they would not know which address is yours.
An interesting aside, I remember when I was first checking out Proof of Humanity, that was when it just was freshly launched, I think. I saw Vitalik on there, And then recently I checked again, and it seems he's gone from the system. Do you know why? Is it even possible to unregister, or what was there a bug when I was looking for him?
Oh, well, I think it's because the submission expire and they need to be remade. And expiration just starting now, so all the people who register very early, they got expired.
Okay. That makes sense. Okay, cool. Do you have? I know it's now 4 minutes to the full hour. You probably have to go in 4 minutes, or do you have some more time?
No, I have another call in 4 minutes, so right here.
Okay, perfect. Then, okay. Thank you, Clément. You are a wealth of knowledge, and it's incredible. I've learned a lot today. Your take on things is just so refreshing and unique, I feel. Please keep up the great work, and thank you so much for being a guest.
Thanks so much, Florian.